We a little different when it comes to Now in America, oh yeah, them niggas gonna be wobbling, pants hanging half down, bored as hell, half to sleep because they high as hell. But Africa, we wake up morning like, look at these YouTube clips of all these kids from Uganda and how do we, you know what I'm saying? Like these kids are performers, like so. For us, it comes natural, like to watch the kids from Africa.
I don't understand that. Um, this is about like maybe the third or fourth time that I've seen like Akon make like inflammatory comments about the differences between Africans and Black Americans. And I think at this point, it is impossible to ignore that there is a schism getting bigger and bigger when it comes to the dynamics between immigrants, African immigrants, and Black Americans. And as an African immigrant myself, I've seen this too well from African immigrants because there's so many dynamics happening, and it takes maybe people like me to be able to explain it. And I think it's getting to the point where it's disgusting. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of misinterpretation out there. And there's a lot of self-hate. Let's keep it honest. Let's keep it frank with it. Self-hate. First of all, what Akon was just talking about was absolutely ridiculous. Okay? They're great performers in every fucking ethnic group, every community, every race, every geographical region. It really doesn't matter. They're great performers and they're trash performance. Yeah, to generalize and say that Africans are just better performers overall, that's absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. When it comes to entertainment, let's keep it frank. When it comes to entertainment, America's got that wrapped up. Okay? Let's stop with the bullshit. When it comes to entertainment, America's got that wrapped up. And when it comes to like genre, we can't freaking put a doubt on hip hop and what hip hop has done for the world. And that hip hop is spearheaded by Black Americans. So what are we talking about? Sit there and act like, okay, overall, you don't even know that. In terms of performance, you don't know that. You don't know that. I mean, I totally reject that. And it brings me to a bigger point. There are about 1.2 billion Black people in Africa. Okay? That's a lot. That's a lot of people. Okay? And for the most part, most of the Africans that moved to the West, moved to Europe, that moved their families, okay, to the West, are usually about the upper middle class. So there is a goal in mind from the parents to the kids that they want to achieve when they move overseas. And usually that's like to go to college, to make something out of yourself. That's not fully representing the continent of Africa and the sentiment. Because when they come out here, they've been told, oh, yeah, you got to go to school, make sure you don't freaking join a gang, make sure you, all of that square stuff that most suburban parents tell their kids. It's the same thing. The same thing. That's one. Two, the concept of race. Most African immigrants, the concept when it comes to the concept of race, they don't understand the dynamics when they move to the West, whether Europe or America. They don't. What they understand is tribalism. They understand like division in between the races. They understand, okay, yeah, we don't like them because they're this tribe. We don't like them because they're this tribe. Now, most Africans are comfortable with that dynamic because they've lived it. So when most Africans move to the West, the concept of, oh, those Black people are not us, or those Black people are not us, it's familiar to them without them even realizing it. Now, in America, for instance, most Black people have a kinship because the concept of race is very familiar to them. And they assume other black people understand that language or that dynamic. So let's say, for instance, a black American, okay, encounters like meets an African who has no idea about the concept of race or why it's important, to stick together, that kind of brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever. You find out like, okay, they don't reciprocate automatically the energy you give it. Like, what's up, bruh? Oh yeah, we'd stick together with this. They don't. No, it's not automatic because they don't understand. First of all, they're out here for an opportunity in a hurry to make something out of themselves. The bonding, we got to stick together to make things happen. They don't understand that. Okay, that usually takes a while. That usually takes about a decade for it to resonate. And by then, you probably would have offended a lot of people. Now, that's one. The other thing that most Africans have been taught by their parents is, which is bad, is the Western society is just better. What white people are doing is just better. It's a form of colonization that's actually permeated over generations, that actually permeates in Africa itself. You got to go there to see it. I'm telling you. The concept of, oh yeah, the white man or the white woman, what they're doing is just better than what we naturally have. It permeates. So you're already dealing with that. So when they come out here, they want to assimilate. They have an inferiority complex, you know what? And they just want to make things happen. But at some point, that is no longer an excuse. Because we live in a global society. We have all sorts of communication, that the world is already smaller, that we interact with each other. So we should be able to understand each other, understand the dynamics that's actually happening quicker before we offend each other and actually hate each other. I think I am tired of Africans moving to the West, taking advantage of infrastructure, culture, institutions that were built by Black Americans, and then still have this condescending superiority complex when it comes to interacting with Black Americans, because that's not a good thing. Can you imagine if a Black American moved to a place in Africa, let's say Nigeria or Lagos, took advantage of the infrastructure over there and started acting superior with the Africans? That would not be tolerated. That would not be comfortable. At first, it would be, oh yeah, this and that. But at some point, that would be uncomfortable for that American. If they're gonna go there, exploit their resources, and then treat them kind of like, oh yeah, you're beneath me. And I think there are some Africans who are doing that subconsciously or not, and it needs to be addressed. Personally, I've witnessed it. For the most part, the Africans that I know, that I grew up with half my life when I was a young boy, oh man, they couldn't wait to actually hang out with their brothers and sisters in America. They adopted the culture. They want to talk like them. They watch the movies. They were excited about it for the most part. But I don't think most of those people are really highly represented in the West. Most of the people that are highly represented in the West are the people who grew up in the upper middle class for the most part. That came with their families and trying to go to the Ivy Leagues or institutions, trying to make something out of themselves. And you get that out of every community. You get the Black American kid who grew up in the suburbs, who doesn't know anything about the hood, who thinks he's too good for the hood. You get the white person who grew up in the suburbs, who does the same thing, who thinks they're better than people in the trailer park. You get the same thing in the Hispanic community. You get the, Ivy League Cuban or Latino or whatever, who feels like, they're better than people who cross the border. Things like that. It's the same dynamic. But what's missing is when Black Americans don't understand, why is there no kinship between people who are Black coming from Africa and Black Americans? Because the kinship amongst Black people in Africa is not automatic simply because of the color of their skin. That's not how they grew up. It's not automatic, okay? For instance, in Lagos, in Nigeria, it's not automatic that a Yoruba feels a kinship with an Igbo, or Igbo feels a kinship with a Hausa. They're all Black. They're all Nigerians. But that dynamic is something they're used to. So when they come out here, they don't automatically see themselves as the same. Only after a while, if they choose to, depending on their character, they go, oh man, we all the same. And usually racism kind of beats that into everybody. Kind of like, okay, we all facing the same thing now. Okay, wow, you understand that. And that usually takes a while. And I think that's something that's to be highlighted. And it's important. It's important to actually stress that out. That when Africans come over here to the West, you got to respect the struggle. You got to respect the history. You got to respect some of the things that the generations of Black Americans have been through. And the reasons why you can't just simply thumb your nose because you've achieved some things using the resources that their forefathers built. You got to respect that. And I think enough of that is not said. Simply saying, oh my God, we're better, we're this and that. If you're so better, so much better, why don't you do it there? That's fair. It's fair when a Black American gets pissed off and says, oh, if you're so much better, if you're so much smarter, if you're so much this and that, as a whole in Africa, why don't you do it there? Simple logic. Let me see what your thoughts are. Comments, questions, and concerns. Feel free to reach us on our social media platforms. That's Real Supernola on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and of course, Simple Logic on Patreon. Talk to you soon.